What if we could bridge the gap between the deaf and hard of hearing with the hearing community? I'd like to welcome Maria Gallucci to the Design Your Legacy podcast this lovely day. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure to host you, and I believe you're joining from Colorado in the United States of America.
Yes. Yep. We're in Colorado. Colorful Colorado, as they say.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, we're going to dive into some subjects that many people have got blind spots around because if they didn't grow up with a family member or friend who is deaf or hard of hearing, they are going to not know certain things. But we're going to jump into this because everyone deserves to design a legacy. And if there is a family member or a friend, this will shine a light into better being able to relate to them in one's awareness. So, to start us out, would you like to share an icebreaker professionally or personally before we jump into the first question?
I think that we just want to make sure everyone feels included and inclusion and just give awareness to all the communities, I think.
Wonderful. Okay, so let me transition over to early responsibility and legacy roots. So you were about 12 years old and you were interpreting for your parents to help them buy their home. So, how did this experience shape your understanding of, let's say, defining, developing, and executing a legacy, especially when it comes to an individual that's deaf or hard of hearing?
I think at 12, I found myself like in a position where I didn't really fully realize the weight of it at the time. And so when I was interpreting, sign language for my parents, it was something that we were like that's just how we were raised. And so when we were going like in the car ride over to the closing dot or the like the closing
Table?
papers and everything, yeah, I didn't think that I didn't think that I was going to interpret, but then I saw my parents struggling and not understanding the paperwork or what they were saying or anything. So I jumped in and helped interpret for them. And then
Mm,
so I think that it's buying a house is very exciting, and it's supposed to be like your number one thing and the biggest purchase of your life. So you're supposed to be exciting or excited for it. And I just feel like that experience, it takes courage to like buy a house. And then for them not to understand it is why I feel like I had to jump in to help interpret for them so they can understand it.
yeah, absolutely. I remember when I bought my first house, it happened to be a new home regarding new construction with the developer. And the paperwork must have been about a phone book thick. And so you're absolutely right. It was probably one of the scariest experiences. I got through it. But
Yeah.
as you had said, even then, as an individual that can hear fully, did I know at the time to have an attorney review it? Did I, sign away too much? I don't know. It did turn out to be a very positive experience, but there is a lot to know, regardless of whether someone's in the state of California, the state of Colorado. And also, like you had said, there are ADA laws that can protect this individual. But these days, if somebody, let's say there is a seller or the brokers involved, or even the developers, if they can cut a corner and not have an individual there to bridge the gap, then it can just,
Then
they
they
don't
can
care.
just fall through and they just don't
Correct.
care. And then they're left with feeling isolated and feeling like they didn't understand. So it's supposed to be like a happy, not stressful situation. And it's stressful to buy a house in the first place, let alone not understand what you're signing or doing.
Okay. So if I circle it back to legacy for a moment, do you think that this was a part of your parents' legacy to finally have this opportunity, even if they were nervous at the closing table?
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like it's creating something meaningful and lasting for them.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think that that was like a turning point for them.
Yeah. It's interesting. And this isn't to throw shade at renters, but I think there is something about the home buying experience, but also being able to own a home and to move up in life, to have
Yeah,
a
exactly.
backyard. Yeah. Yeah.
Like have your own place. And there were six of us kids, so we
Okay.
had a lot of kids, so we needed a big backyard.
Oh, well, that's great. And I also think there's something about, um, and I don't know what the statistics are, but I wonder if individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing are less likely to acquire property.
Yeah, that's a good question. I should look up the statistics. Or I feel like it's like that, and it shouldn't be. Like
Mhm.
everybody should be able to have that opportunity and special time in their lives.
Mm. Yeah. So it's interesting. Not only then did this become a part of your parents' life legacy to have this home. So if you were 12, then that meant then you got to enjoy that big backyard after age 12 as a teenager.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
And then it also became a part of your legacy because you understood then how to interpret for this world. Because you had said in our preamble that one of the first languages that you learned was sign language.
Yes, we didn't even my mom always told us that we learned to speak from the TV and obviously school. So we had to go to like speech therapy and school counseling, all that stuff for like talking and but yeah, so we knew ASL when we were babies.
Wow, that's awesome. Again, I think it just adds to someone's sensitivity in meeting someone where they are at compared to thinking, oh, everyone's going to come to my world or everyone's, I'm the center of the universe, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So let me bring up other defining moments. So were there any other pivotal experiences growing up as what I think the acronym is CODA, Child of a Deaf Adult?
Yep, child of deaf adults.
Yeah, that influence not just your business path, because you own a couple of businesses today, but also how you approach building relationships, because a legacy is more than just money and taxes and legal
Mm,
paperwork.
I think that it gave us empathy because we saw our parents not feel included and we saw like them feeling not seen or supported. And so I think that it made us more empathetic or like more like of an empath and more
Compassionate.
aware. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, compassionate. Yeah, it
yeah.
made us for sure. I think that's like
Well, I
one
imagine
of
if
the
you
things.
on the weekly basis, like I had shared with you, if somebody doesn't have a family member or a friend that is deaf or hard of hearing, they don't know what the experience is like when they go to the grocery store, or if that individual would like to go shopping and pick up a pair of shoes, or buy a car, or go to the library.
Yeah, exactly. Because imagine if you're looking for a book and you're trying to talk to them, and I
Mhm.
think that's my whole purpose of writing the book is to make other people aware that they can read and write. You can write to them to help them. You can put it on your phone to text to say, "Do you need help?" And
Mhm.
just try, like just try to help them or communicate with anybody. As a matter of fact, not just the deaf and hard of hearing community.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, that somebody could text something or even write it on a piece of
Hmm.
paper. Like, is that the library book that you are looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Like, or do you need help?
Mhm.
What area are you looking for?
Yeah. I before I go on to the next question, I remember teaching ESL. This was many years ago, and I did it for about a year. And sometimes we can think, well, we'll just shout at the person or talk louder, and that does nothing.
No, I it is that happens amazingly a lot. Like, and I'm like, they can't hear you. You do not need to shout. You just need to like either like write or text or even a lot of like we can lip read. And so you can even stand in front of them and just like talk slower and lip read. But yeah, talking louder does not help.
Yeah. Okay. So let's speak about bridging the two worlds for a moment. So you've lived your whole life navigating between the deaf and the hearing communities. How has that shaped your perspective on inclusion, empathy, and what it means for any and all of us to design a meaningful legacy?
I think that it has definitely shaped my perspective because it gives you a different perspective because you have your own perspective with the deaf community and
Okay.
then seeing like the hearing community. So it's just like it's trying to bridge the gap so you can be inclusive on both areas because there doesn't have to be a gap. Like we can all just be included and just be aware that that's what inclusion is. Like you just include everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think a part of the bridging the two worlds is that you know how to walk between two worlds. Like obviously you have your hearing, so you could converse, but you also can say to somebody within that hearing world, let me invite you into another parallel lifestyle where somebody wants to communicate, but they only have so many means to do it. And if the individual in the hearing community doesn't know sign language, it's how do you bridge, A with B?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like navigating the two cultures has taught me to listen deeply and
Mhm.
to be more like not just with my ears, but with like my whole self and like yeah, it's definitely it you're more aware and you're more
Mhm.
open. Like you're more like awake to the different communities.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because I probably like, let's say if I met you on the street or at a real estate table, I might not ask because I would think, oh, I shouldn't pry. I think a lot of the times in society, we kind of want to know, but we're not going to be so bold in curiosity to ask, like, I don't know your parents' names, let's say they're Bob and Sally, to say to Bob and Sally or to even write on a piece of paper, what's your world like? Because we might
Hmm.
feel like, oh, that's intrusive. And they might want to
Yeah.
share or they might not want to share.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like, but guess what you just did? You just tried. And so
Mm-hmm.
and that makes them feel good because like somebody's actually going up to them and just saying, "Hey, do you need help? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how are you today?" And
Yeah.
they don't like if we're walking down the street and we say hi and we can hear them say hi or how's your day, but
Mm-hmm.
like they don't get that
Mm-hmm.
part because they can't obviously hear. So if you know that they're deaf or see them signing, you could just say, "Hi, how's it? Like, how's your day?" Or learn a couple like little words.
Yeah. Well, I know from the world of coaching, because I've worked in the capacity of a coach since 2014, that one of the greatest gifts to give to a client is to have them be seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like better than any drug out there. It's like because people don't always slow down enough to listen, where they listen with their whole heart and they listen to actually hear the other person, not listening to talk in response or reaction.
Right, exactly. That's all I feel like anybody wants is to feel loved and feel
Mhm.
included and feel like feel seen.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about miscommunication as an opportunity. You once secured a much higher salary at 16 due to a miscommunication. What lessons did that teach you about the power as well as presumptions around language and negotiation?
I think that it taught me to communicate a little like I mean obviously it did good for me because I got a higher salary but I think that it teaches or taught me like then like so sometimes you just don't pay attention or listen and so like and I think that you need to have good communication skills and I feel like having the deaf culture and the hearing culture since I have both it makes your communication skills a little bit like I can't describe it, but like a little bit not better because nothing's ever better, but more like you could communicate in different ways, and I think that's what that taught me.
So how did you secure that higher salary then? Did they just make a presumption or did you assume something and they didn't challenge it and rebutting
So
it?
I said 24. I said 24,000. I think it was. Which one's more? I forgot. So, but they thought I said oh, I was talking about 24,000. So when they asked, I said 24 instead
Mhm.
of thousand, like a year, and then they gave me 2,400 a month.
You know, I think that's an amazing story because sometimes when people do make presumptions or they don't know any better, sometimes that's when it works out the best in business. There was a prior podcast guest, Greg Logan, and he spoke about how his father in Australia was negotiating with the Japanese and he threw up two fingers for two and he meant 200,000 and they wrote a check for 2 million. And that changed the course of the whole family's life. But when you think about language, you know, how we receive something and how we transmit it can oftentimes be worlds apart.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good for them.
Well, it's very good, but I go back to this idea of um, individuals that want to communicate, but then when there are these barriers, whether it's a language barrier or that somebody doesn't have the ability to even speak, you know, with enunciation, and then they
Mhm.
have to use sign language and and then
Yeah, and we go a lot off of expression too. So expression is very
right.
important, like in the deaf culture, because you're signing, and then you're signing with your emotions and everything. So that makes a difference too.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about the body language aspect.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Wow. Well, I guess at the end of the day, humans still, I mean, body language, they say is like 80% of communication.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine the deaf cultures like that too, because we use our hands, so we use our bodies and our full expressions. And like when you're hearing and you're talking, you can emphasize your voices and everything. So when you sign, we do a lot of expressions and body language stuff.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that. So let's talk about entrepreneurial vision for a moment. I imagine you're a woman-owned business, or that's what you have then.
Yes, I'm a real estate agent. So
Okay.
yeah. And so, and I got into that 33 years ago,
Okay.
because of helping my parents and seeing them struggle with everything that I wanted to help, like,
Others. And you
yeah,
had,
others.
yeah. Okay. So you have founded multiple businesses which empower the deaf community. So what inspired you to create these platforms? And then how do you think it can transform industries today? So I would imagine what inspired you is that you walked it and lived it.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I was in it and I experienced it even with my clients and everything before. Like if they were with another agent before and they didn't have an interpreter and the agent didn't know sign language when they like met me, they're like, oh my God, this is such a different experience. And so I built ASL Realty, which is a nationwide, so anybody from like California or anyone, I find them an agent in that area,
Mhm.
so they're not left out and not and it's there's a lot of fluent agents around nationwide, but it's smaller than you think. It's kind of sometimes hard to find one.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I just think about the fact that you would understand the pain points and then proactively meet that individual where they are at. Because I bet some of the leads probably come to you, but even in establishing a business, and I think you've got three businesses that you founded, it then is an invitation that your business exists to serve that niche.
Yeah, exactly. And I also help the deaf community. I'm on the three different deaf boards as well. So within
Mm.
then I can, because I'm fluent in ASL, so it's my first language. But no, I think that it helps them feel heard and feel
Probably
like they
wanted.
got this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like we want your business.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then they know that I'm there to help them. And that makes me, it makes my happy, or it makes me very, very happy, and it feeds my soul to see them very happy. That's why I love
Mhm.
like helping them. Like that's what makes me happy and gives me my cup is full every time I help them and see their faces when they go into their own house, or sell their house and understand what they're doing.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's such meaning in your life. I mean, if I think about like fulfillment and satisfaction, then it exceeds just the profit and the money. But also, I would think it would change an industry, particularly the home buying experience, because it is stating that there is a business just for them. There is an agency just for them. There are individuals that are willing to serve just them. So it's not
Yeah.
just that they're going to walk into the local Remax or Century 21, or I can't think of some of the other names today, but and then just get paired with someone who just sees it as another file on their desk.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm with Compass, and they let me start an ASL affinity group. So
Okay.
now we have like a little group within Compass that serves this community, and because it's a very, very underserved community, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool that you're doing
Yeah.
this. Okay, let's talk about legacy in business. So, when you think about the three companies that you founded, what values do you most want them to carry forward as a part of your legacy? Or what might you say are your top three or four core values personally, either or?
I think honesty for one, and for sure. And then I want to make the experience for them fun and
Mm,
less stressful. And I think communication.
that's awesome.
Those would be the main ones.
Yeah. I wonder if your parents know how much influence they had on you. Like,
I
very,
know. I wish my dad had just passed. My dad knew I was writing the book, and he had just passed a couple of years ago. And I always think about that every day. Like I wish he knew that he was still alive when this book like came out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very
Mhm.
nice. Thank you. Yeah, I think
Of
it's
course.
great. Sometimes when it comes to writing a holistic legacy plan, one's values are like the legs of a chair. So, like, if the vision is like the chair, it's like the legs of the chair are the values that hold the vision in place. And so, if I think about, and I'm just making this up right now on the spot, but if your vision is to allow every individual who's deaf and hard of hearing to have a very fun experience when they buy a house,
Mhm.
then those values around honesty and being clear, like you had said, regarding protecting them, because they are protected under ADA law, the American Disabilities Act, to understand what it is they're signing and to meet them, where they're at of like, well, what does this word mean? And what's this term? And
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
this?
And not get taken advantage of because that happens a lot because they can't, I mean, I can't tell you how many times it's like with the elderly, how many times they get taken advantage of. It's the same thing. Like I had a deaf client who's deaf and elderly, and people always come up to their door and they can't understand and they want them to sign some like get all new windows or get your,
Mhm.
and
Solar.
they yeah, and solar, yeah. And they do it, and it's like, no, no, no. I actually had to stop one of them. I like went over. I'm like, do not sign anything. Like this is
Mhm.
not, and it was a scam. And
Mm,
they just, it's sad and it's crazy that that happens.
yeah. Well, what I think is great is that your values are articulated, that you've got such a heart for honesty and such a heart for communication. Like in the world of legacy planning, there's something called explicit communication. And what that
Yeah,
means is like if we go, let's say we're wealthy and I'm your child, I'm just making this up on the spot right now, and we go to the toy store, it's not that you're going to pull out a piece of plastic to swipe your Visa or MasterCard. You could take out like $100 bills for your Legos or, whatever it is. And then I see, oh, that toy cost, $300. And then
yeah,
there's like a real connection there because somebody took the time compared to like the ease and convenience of just pulling plastic out on the Discover card or American Express and presuming that the other party understands the nuances of that transaction.
yeah. I agree. And it's just being able to understand what you're doing and what you're reading is. I think it's huge with them, and it makes their heart feel good too. And like I think that I feel like I have a bigger heart because I had the two different communities and because I grew up in that community.
Yeah, the other point, and before I go on to the next question, is I think there's also something to be said about the foundation of education and knowledge. Because then let's say that those individuals, and again, I'm just making up names of Bob and Sally can say, oh, well, we have a reference point that when we signed our last housing documents to purchase, we went over this disclosure. And now they have something in their database where if they buy a second house or they buy a duplex one day or a commercial property, now they have a reference point to know that somebody took the time to explain it to them and they understand the words on the page.
Yeah, exactly. They understand what they're citing instead of just being rushed through it or just sign
Mm-hmm.
here, here. Like at least we're able to explain it to them in their language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Lead-based paint and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when it comes with contracts, you're right. People will say, well, just sign here, especially these days with DocuSign.
Oh yeah, yeah, and everything now is electronic, so it's even more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about communication as inheritance for a moment. So let's say that there's families of wealth or influence, and I'm sure you work with a broad range of individuals. Communication breakdowns often cause generational conflict. I imagine your generation is great. You cherished your parents, probably less conflict because you all had to work together. So based on your lived experiences, how can people bridge these gaps and build stronger legacies of understanding?
I think that they could bridge it by, I think, just being able to communicate. There's a lot of platforms that you can use. I think one's like Quizilla or something like that, or even just showing your phone and texting. I think that if people like just try to communicate with them by either writing or doing all that stuff, I think that that can bridge the gap a lot and just like understanding what's happening and what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think there's also something about maybe not having bias, whether it's conscious or unconscious bias.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because a lot of them, they could feel discriminated against, and which happens a lot in the employment world. And they get, like, my dad didn't have a raise like almost his entire career, and
Okay.
he was at the company he worked for gosh, like he retired, and then from there, and he didn't get a raise. They didn't have interpreters in like the sales, not the sales meeting or like the orientation or anything that. So I think that they get discriminated against a lot,
Well, I
and
was
that's not necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about like, let's say there's a family member and let's say they don't struggle with being deaf or hard of hearing. In families, people already have the bias of going, "You're wrong."
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. But I
Yeah.
think you're right. Okay. That's a family for you. But then if you're referring to like this idea of if you're sitting across the table, particularly in business, it's a bias of that person's dumb or stupid. And I realize I'm putting my
Mhm.
foot in my mouth, but I'm just blurting out what people can sometimes think in their mind because someone else doesn't know how to meet them where they are at. But then again, it's like, but you don't know sign language. So how can you think that the person sitting across the table is any less intelligent? But people can make these snap decisions because we've got the attention span of a goldfish these days.
Right. I agree. And that happens often. And the only thing that is they're not any it's just a different type of communication. So just because you know English and they know sign language doesn't mean that they're any different than you
Yeah.
or less intelligent. When you just speak two different languages.
Yeah. I'm bringing up that point because I just want to bring out the pink elephants in the room. Because again, if somebody doesn't know, it's like they could just make a quick snap judgment because the human brain loves to preserve calories and think less sometimes. And so they
Yeah,
could just,
exactly.
right, and then have a snap decision on someone without being willing to enter into their world.
Exactly. And then you
Okay.
just have to understand like the world. It's a two different worlds, but they're the same and they go together.
Yeah. One of the things I think is so beautiful is when people do make that space to connect. Not only do both
Hmm.
parties feel that much less lonely in the world today when there's a loneliness epidemic, because people are looking at their phones, the blue screens, and they're just so busy in like this society that's all about productivity and, having 2 cups of caffeine in the morning or whatever is the flavor of choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the power of storytelling for a moment. So, your story is both personal and universal. How do you believe sharing stories like yours can inspire others to embrace differences and design more inclusive legacies?
I think that I think, oh, I'm hoping to make awareness that we are all just one and just love each other. And we're not any different from one another at all. So I feel like I hope that it'll give a perspective of the deaf and hard of hearing culture and to make people understand like it is a different world, but you can be in it with them.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be separate,
yeah, that's awesome.
like
And
inclusion.
yeah, yeah, everyone is trying to walk their own path these days and just make it. And survival is real for any individual. Very few get a free pass in this life. So,
Yeah, exactly. And it's
yeah.
short.
Yes, yes. So, when you imagine your legacy beyond business, what do you hope others, whether it's friends, family, associates, etc., remember about you and the life you've built?
I hope that they remember that all I wanted to do was bring everybody together
Okay.
and just be happy and be one and just love each other. We're not any different from anyone else in all of the different like communities and things like that. That's what
Yeah,
I'm hoping for.
that's very cool. I was thinking that like the motto of your legacy should be something like bringing everyone together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In all walks of life.
Yeah, like if you ever need like a tagline or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So before you share the website to your company as well as the title of your book, so advice for any of the listeners or viewers out there. So for someone listening or viewing who wants to design a holistic legacy but feels overwhelmed, what's one small but powerful step they can take to begin today?
Just try.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think just wherever you are, if you see anybody struggling or anything, just try and kindness, like just be kind and have a
Yeah.
big heart.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
lovely. What is a good website? And then I will close this out.
Galluccihomes.com, and there's a link to the book in there that you can purchase it. And my book is called Raised in Silence.
That must be the virtual backdrop behind you.
Yep, it
Yeah. Yeah, that's
is.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
the book cover.
Well, I do think it's interesting that there's so many different experiences of how people are raised and the strengths that come with that, um, and the skill sets also. Because in order to make your household survive, I bet all six children stepped up to say, how can we be a strong team?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And we're all very, very close. Our family was very close, and all six of us siblings are all still extremely close.
and I think that's wonderful. So it's like, Timmy, you wash the dishes and I'll clean the floor, to
Yeah.
make it all, and you mow the lawn in that backyard or whatever.
Yep. Teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah,
And yeah,
absolutely.
and we were all a team because all we had was each other. Like we were all hearing. All six of us were hearing, and all we had were each other.
Mhm. I didn't ask this question on today's episode, but I can just throw it out right now and put you on the spot. I think oftentimes about this idea of a hardcover coffee table book for individual legacies or family legacies. If someone is blessed enough to have a living room with a coffee table there, it can oftentimes have a book that is of architect, like Frank Lloyd Wright, et cetera, or fashion designers, whether it's Karl Lagerfeld, Ralph Lauren. I'm thinking about like Gucci and Chanel and all of that. And then we have this idea of, well, isn't our story, important enough, valuable enough that we also distill the best pictures and the best life lessons and business lessons of what worked and pass that forward. You did share that you are a mother, so I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to set aside a weekend or two, a month for the next year to design your legacy hardcover coffee table book, what pictures and stories and life lessons would fill its pages?
I think it would fill with I was a single mom girl.
Okay.
Jordan, my daughter, I had her at 16, so I raised her by myself
Okay.
her entire life. And then Adrian, who's my son, who's also gay as well. So I think I would put pictures of them when just growing up because I raised Jordan all by myself. I have three granddaughters, and I think just Adrian coming out and not even blinking an eye. And I think that's how the community helped me as well because there was no judgment. When he came out, I was just like, okay, that's fine with me. Like everything's good. I still love you and always will. And I think
Mhm.
it'd be like love and a rainbow heart. That's what I would put on it.
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm sensing is pictures of them growing up, and then messages around acceptance.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Acceptance.
I
Everyone
might,
that's what everyone wants is just to feel accepted by one another.
yeah, I might add the fourth value to your legacy plan of kindness.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
it.
communication, fun experiences, honesty is the third one, and then the fourth would be kindness.
Kindness. Yes. No, I
Yeah,
would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah. In
Sure.
terms of the roots of, where your parents started, you and your siblings out in terms of that foundation of kindness, and then how you pass it forward as a family trait or a victory story.
Yeah. And I think I've tried to instill that in the kids. Like just I always tell them you don't know what another person is going through with their own
Mhm.
self. So you always just be kind. Like you always
Mhm.
do the better part, always have a big heart and always be kind. And they both do. They both have really big hearts.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to close this out. So we started out today's episode with the intention of what if we could bridge the gap between the deaf and hard of hearing with the hearing community? And I think we have fulfilled that business promise today because we have spoken about a number of topics, including business aspects of being at the contract table or the closing table when it comes to buying property and understanding that individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing are protected under the ADA laws, but I think you've also spoken to some other experiences of you being a woman in business, whether you were an entrepreneur starting out at a young age to take full personal agency and responsibility, or even where you are today. I mean, I think you look as young as a button, but you're older than I am, and but you have created different businesses, so you've definitely been somebody that has taken the heat because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, but also it requires the discipline, day in and day out and week in and week out. And so I wanted to touch on that point, but also, you spoke about empathy and we all just want to be included. And that oftentimes with the deaf and hard of hearing, we have to look at facial expressions, body language, lip reading, and that are those are aspects to how this community is going to try to convey their thoughts about what it is they like, what it is that they feel comfortable with. And so not to just think that because they don't communicate in a style that we are familiar with, that they aren't communicating. We have to read them. So thank you very much for
Awesome.
being a guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, to any of the listeners or viewers out there, please check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, etc. Please remember to rate and review. And if you feel so inclined, leave a comment or a review. And also send an email or a phone call, either to Maria or myself, and let us know your thoughts about today's conversation. So thank you so much for joining. And thank you, Maria, for speaking
Thank
into
you.
your legacy.